Hello, my name is Moussu and I work at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. I am the director of the Center for Writers and an assistant professor in the English and Film Studies department. This article was published in TESOL Quarterly, Volume 44, Number 4 in December 2010. It is called The Influence of Teacher Contact Time and Other Variables on ESL Students' Attitudes Towards Native and Non-Native English-Speaking Teachers. It was one of 3 articles that came from my dissertation. The other article was Non-Native English-Speaking English Language Teachers, History and Research, published in Language Teaching in 2008 that I co-wrote with Enric Jurda. Another article was Toward a Conversation Between ESL Teachers and Intensive English Program Administrators, which was published in the TESOL Journal in 2010. My interest in this topic of native and non-native ESL teachers started when I entered a master's program in TESOL. I am a native speaker of French and have taught French many years, and then I passed the TOEFL and was accepted into the MA program. However, I started to doubt my authority in front of my ESL students when I started to teach. The good thing, though, is that these doubts provided me with a perfect research topic. For my MA, I investigated ESL students' attitudes towards their non-native teachers at the beginning and at the end of the semester. For my PhD research, I investigated students' attitudes towards their native and non-native teachers at the beginning and the end of the semester. Also, the perceived strengths and weaknesses of the native and non-native teachers. And finally, the perceptions and hiring practices of intensive English program administrators. The TESOL article and this video present some of my findings. Most people think that a native speaker of a language is automatically a good teacher of this language. Most English schools in the world today hire native English-speaking teachers, even without education. A large number of students in MA TESOL programs are non-native speakers of English, and many of them will not find jobs because they are non-native speakers of English. Many studies have shown, however, that non-native teachers can be good teachers for the following reasons. They offer a good learner model to their students. They can teach language strategies very effectively. They are able to provide a lot of information about the language to the students. They understand their students' challenges and needs. They are able to anticipate and predict language difficulties. And finally, they can, especially in EFR settings, use the students' native language to their advantage. However, non-native teachers encounter several obstacles. They still feel much anxiety in front of students or colleagues. It is often difficult for them to feel qualified and appreciated, and they sometimes feel isolated and marginalized. Finally, their teaching abilities and competencies are often questioned when they make the same mistakes as native teachers or appear hesitant. In previous studies, ESL and EFL students' attitudes towards non-native teacher skills were appreciated in some areas, for example, their knowledge of grammar, but native teachers were often preferred. So for this study, I studied attitudes. The study of attitude is not an easy task. Attitudes include memories, emotions, beliefs, and actions. And they change with time, which is why they were observed twice in this study. I also realized that Likert scales questionnaires are not the best tool to investigate attitudes, but they allow for large numbers of participants. First, what are the attitudes at the beginning of the semester of ESL students towards native-speaking and non-native-speaking ESL teachers? Second, what teacher and student variables, like first language, influence ESL students' attitudes towards their native speaker and non-native speaking ESL teachers? And third, does length of exposure to their ESL teachers influence students' attitudes towards native speaking and non-native speaking ESL teachers? I used questionnaires with multiple choice questions, some Likert scale statements, or Likert scale statements, from 1 to 5, from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and a few open-ended questions. The questionnaires were translated into 12 languages. participants came from 22 intensive English programs. 804 students answered the initial questionnaire, and 643 students answered the final questionnaire. 30% of the students were speakers of Korean, and 18% of them were speakers of Spanish. There was no significant difference between the two groups of students' responses to "I think my English teacher is a good English teacher." There was, however, a significant difference between the two groups of students' responses to "I can learn English just as well from a native English teacher as from a non-native English teacher." The students taught by non-native teachers had a positive attitude towards their teacher. They thought their teacher's English skills and pronunciation weren't great, but they thought that non-native teachers could be good teachers. The students who were taught by native teachers had a very positive attitude towards them. They thought that their teacher's English skills and pronunciation were good. They didn't think that non-native teachers could be good teachers. The variables that were studied included students' first language, teacher's first language, class subject, class level, and expected grades. First variable, students' first language. Speakers of certain languages seem to have a more or less positive attitudes towards both native and non-native teachers. For example, Chinese, Korean, Thai, and Japanese speakers had a more negative attitude towards non-native teachers and native teachers. Second variable, teacher's first language. Students' attitudes towards Chinese-speaking teachers and teachers who spoke non-North American varieties of English were not as positive as students' attitudes towards teachers speaking North American English, Spanish, and Russian. Third variable, class subject. Students' attitudes towards both native and non-native teachers were equally positive. Students' attitudes towards non-native teachers of listening-speaking were more positive than that of students of native listening-speaking teachers. Fourth variable, class level. Students at higher levels of proficiency had a more positive attitude towards non-native teachers, probably because of previous exposure to a variety of teachers. Fifth variable, expected grades. The attitude of all students who expected a low grade was negative towards both native and non-native teachers. The sixth variable that was investigated but not discussed in this article was how students responded to individual institutions. It showed that students in schools with higher numbers of non-native teachers had a more positive attitude toward non-native teachers than students in schools with fewer numbers of non-native teachers. At the beginning of the semester, 79% of the students taught by native teachers and 74% of the students taught by non-native teachers said that they would encourage a friend to take a course with their teacher. At the end of the semester, 76% of the students taught by a native teacher and 75% of the students taught by non-native teachers said that they would encourage a friend to take the course with their teacher. At the beginning of the semester, 14% of the students taught by native teachers and 29% of the students taught by non-native teachers strongly agreed that non-native teachers could be just as good teachers as native teachers. At the end of the semester, 17% of the students taught by native teachers and 42% of the students taught by non-native teachers strongly agreed that non-native teachers could be great teachers just as well as native teachers. These results suggest a number of interesting trends. First, students' attitudes towards both native and non-native teachers seem to be influenced not so much by the nativeness or non-nativeness of their teachers, but by individual teacher and student variables. These variables include personality, individual experience, and background, as well as pedagogical skills. Also, other variables that were studied here included students' first language, which influence in similar ways their attitudes towards both native and non-native teachers. This suggests that the native-non-native dichotomy is sometimes ineffective in predicting students' opinions of their teachers. Students' attitudes towards teachers of different linguistic origins strongly indicate that assuming that all native teachers are alike and all non-native teachers are alike is no longer defensible. Finally, the analysis of the influence of time and exposure to their teachers on students' attitudes confirms that students' negative or positive preconceptions towards native and non-native teachers are less predictable than previously believed. Students' responses also suggested that their attitudes towards native and non-native ESL teachers were not as significantly different as might have been expected, and did not become significantly more positive or less positive over time. These results may inspire teacher preparation programs and student teachers to rethink the conventional notions and definitions of the native speaker and of the good teacher. A better understanding of students' motivation for learning English, their expectations of what constitutes a good language teacher, and their experience with native and non-native ESL teachers in different contexts can inform and enrich the language experience of ESL students, the teacher training programs, and the pedagogical and professional experience of teacher educators, student teachers, EFL teachers, and language program administrators. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for watching.